How to end the Ukraine war. Let's just start by asking, how do we equip and train the Ukrainian armed forces to win? Okay, so this is a stupid idea, so why bring it up? Like many of you, I found I was increasingly frustrated by the slow pace of this war. Conversely, when thinking about it, some things are just slapping in the face. Given Ukraine's limited armament, it can't be any other way. So how would this war be run if everything was in place? Thus this video. So, how did this war end up like this? How would changing the parameters make a difference? We need to start changing our view to a long view. Where's the air power? World War II showed us one thing. It's impossible to run a combined arms attack without air support. The German army tried repeatedly. It never worked, at least not for very long. The last attempt at the Battle of the Bulge probably shortened the war by 6 months. How on earth will we reach the conclusion that Ukraine didn't need Western aircraft? And the Institute for the Study of War put down the following article or statement, and I will quote it here. Ukraine will also need Western combat aircraft. It is baffling to hear that in the West, arguments that Ukraine does not need combat aircraft. No, NATO forces would never undertake to conduct mechanized penetrations of prepared defensive positions without air superiority. The Ukrainians are doing so because they have no other choice. But they are paying a heavy price. They need the ability to keep Russian aircraft out of the skies over the battlefield and to use their own aircraft to assist in the advance. By the way, if you haven't started cluing into the Institute for the Study of War, do a Google search for it. You'll find it very quickly. They have perhaps the best information anywhere on the Ukraine war. The effect of an integrated air defense system. The current state of war has both sides having almost complete denial to either side's air force. The sheer size and number of AAW defense missile systems has precluded any air campaign by either side. To date, the best has been accomplished to use glide bombs to augment artillery. Now here I am just talking about battlefield. Certainly the Russian army has used aircraft to launch missiles repeatedly at Ukraine, at their civilian infrastructure. And that's so stupid, it hurts from just a warfare side. And it comes down to simply this. You're wasting valuable assets trying to cow civilians that will never bow to Russia. Over there to here, it's lucky for the Ukraine military that they never wised up. Drones. It's almost impossible to remain hidden very long. They are not game changers, but they are great enablers. The axiom of war is what you can see, you can hit. What you hit, you can kill. And oh my, can't you just see everything? Artillery, the god of war. You hear that artillery is a great killer on the Ukraine's war's battlefields, and presented like it is something new. It's not. In World War II, is estimated 80% of all casualties were caused by artillery, including mortars. What is new is the precision that is brought by modern artillery systems and the precision of drones. Well, here's something when you start talking about artillery systems or reading about artillery systems very much, it's circular area probability, CEP. The smaller that diameter is, it says that if you launch a round, it will land within a circle, and 50% of those rounds will land within that circle. If it's 10 yards, you only need one artillery shell. If it's 50 yards, you need 3 or 4. If it's 150 yards, you may need dozens. It's a magic number. And a lot of Western systems can get very, very close. Mine's the guest that just keeps giving, as old as time and just as nasty as it ever was. Nothing slows down an offensive action more than a minefield. They're simple to deploy, helpless to remove, and there's nothing worse than mine clearing under fire. Trench warfare. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Long accounts of the American Civil War are not out of place in Ukraine. One thing is sure, right now as it stands, the Ukrainian war is a defensive war, And defensive ascendant wars have one thing in common: hideous casualties for small gains, just like we're seeing every day. How the Russian defense works: trenches defend the troops, mines slow any approach to the Russian trenches, artillery kills anything that goes to the trenches, the integrated air defense protects both from air attack. The Russian Air Force backs up the integrated air defense and contributes to glide bombs to the artillery. Cage-52 Gators provide that vital armored defense. And don't forget all those Russian AT missiles that haven't got anywhere and work pretty damn well. How do we change it? Collectively, we're going to have to take a longer view. Wars this size typically last 4 to 5 years, and the rest is going to have to gear up for a long industrial war. The aftermath will last decades, and a grim assessment indeed. But the Russian defense is brittle. There is no system of reserve units ready to launch counterattacks to recover lost ground. Instead, local units near the point of attack counterattack to regain or stop gains made by returning units. The counterattack is stopped or limited, but the soldiers are exhausted. 95% of all Russian units are stuck on the line with demolition or relief. They're getting tired. Interlocking defense systems, mines, drones, artillery, attack helicopters. Air defenses make an interlocking system that makes breaking the defense very difficult. Ukraine needs a way to unlock it. Using defense air systems is a great way to start. Russian AAW missile systems. The Tor system is mobile, 16-kilometer range. Panzer offers 30-millimeter AAW guns and missiles with a 20-kilometer range. S-300 and S-400 missile systems will range up to 240 kilometers, and IGAD-man pads will always be around the battlefield. You'll never get rid of them. Suppression destruction of enemy air defenses. I said we need a long-term view. It begins by equipping the Ukraine with a functional air force equipped with aircraft to accomplish the requirements required of it. There are 2 missions that must be carried out at the same time: contesting airspace and the suppression of air defense, destruction of air defense. Contesting airspace. It will be impossible to run a SEAD campaign without making the airspace behind Russian lines a tough place to be. It's going to require 4 AWACS aircraft because you need that name for 724 coverage. Surveilling the area battlegrounds. Opposing Su-35s will be a large... Well, let's try that again. Opposing Su-35s will be at a large disadvantage. F-16s, the latest ACE radar, should be more than enough when matched with AWACS to guide them to the intercept. AMRAAM C-8s, or preferably D-4s because they have a longer range, have the reach to clear out the space, allowing an E-18s to begin the SEAD campaign. Suppression of enemy air defenses requires specialized aircraft like the E-18 Growler or the like. I say that because there are very few aircraft like the E-18 Growler out there right now. The use of the MALD AMD 160B to decoy S-300s, 400s, Panzers, and Tor systems. This little puppy is an expendable munition, and it can mimic any aircraft in the sky. Must be a systemic destruction of integrated air defense. Completion will open the way to air defense against Russian artillery systems, and MAD pads will survive no matter what is done. The other candidates, there are not many. You have the E-18 Growler, which I've mentioned before. It's in production, it's expensive to sell, and we'll have to talk the U.S. Navy into it. Not going to be easy. State-of-the-art jamming and detection. And there's an equivalent system for the SEAD mission, which is the EA-6D Prowler. It's sitting in storage in the desert. These are worn-out birds, expensive to maintain, still might do the job. And the F-35, which getting the U.S. to let those go is going to be tough. Stealth means less support required for the mission. Comes equipped with complete E-link package. Package with a harm missile might well be the answer. In current production. We'd like not to reveal secrets so we get shot down, and at $80 million each are as cheap as a fighter gets these days. The AGM-158, that is the U.S. equivalent to the Storm Shadow. There are a lot of these in stockpile at 230-mile range and the lowest range variety. They're great to use against bridges. They have heavy penetrating warheads comparable to Storm Shadow, deployable from the F-16. Anything in reach. The real frailty of the Russian effort is logistics and manpower. Russian colonies have mobilized more men. Supplying them is another matter. And rail lines are used for the majority of supply. Any rail bridge would be a priority target. But in the short term, you can simply bomb the hell out of every rail line you can reach until, for a couple of weeks, local forces are going to have to depend on what they have. And nobody has that much. Follow-on air campaign seeks out and destroys artillery batteries. Use the F-16 at high altitude with the JDAMs. Destruction of the supply and ammo dumps. Destruction of bridges. Mass destruction of trench systems. Enables combined arm offense. And the Russians probably aren't going to stick around for the finality. But you could be wrong. Is it possible? Yes, but it's going to take 2 years to get the equipment. Pilots are going to have to be trained on both the equipment and trained to the mission. This capability doesn't exist in the Ukraine Air Force at this time. And there's going to have to be more will showed by the West up until this time. Long-term view. And I say this because we keep trying to find piecemeal answers to something I see as a long-term problem. UAF is armed by a zoo of incompatible vehicles. Ukraine needs to pick one type of IFV. Any Western IFV will do. Ukraine needs one type of tank. By default, it should be the Leopard 2. That's what they got the most of. One self-propelled artillery system, the Panzerhaub 2000 or whatever they choose. It doesn't really matter. They need a couple hundred HIMARS. 4 E7 Wedgetails. I would suggest that somebody talk to the European Union and get them to kick in money to Saab and get them 150 Gripen E's. That would do the job just wonderfully. The goal here is you're going to supply Ukraine, make sure that they're standing with a modern, compatible, NATO-compatible army. Russia isn't going anywhere. Like it or not, Russia declared itself as NATO's enemy. Ukraine has proven that to be a steadfast ally to NATO. Poland, Ukraine, Finland, and the Baltic states are on the front line, along with Ukraine. Even if Putin loses power, there's every chance the successor will be just at least as bad, might be worse. Should go without saying, but Ukraine must join NATO forces once the war is over. They've proven themselves, folks. They have nothing to show any of us anymore. Cost. We in the United States of America have invested $2 trillion in Afghanistan, an utter and total loss. Before that, we had South Vietnam, same result. But now we have an ally that we can trust. It's worth the investment. Europe has a fortress state that will stand firm against Russia, a resource worth the time and effort. We need to invest. We need to invest for the long term. To run it out.